Okay, so getting back into our coverage over identity crisis, this is where things get pretty dark. It started off dark when it came to identity crisis, but it gets even darker. We also learn here why you have the elongated man and also other members of the league wanting to go after a certain character known as Dr. Light. And so today's video, we're going to cover issues number 2 and 3 in our coverage over identity crisis. Now, there are a couple of things we have to remember when it comes to identity crisis. The first is that this whole event is about who killed off the wife of the elongated man. Her name was Sue Dibney. Now, all we know is that she was killed in her own apartment while waiting for her husband, the elongated man, to come back to celebrate his birthday. Now, after that, you then had him and also other superheroes give her a proper funeral. But after her funeral, you then had different heroes group up to go after different enemies who may have wanted to come after the elongated man. But then we had a small group of characters actually meet up in the back of the church because he believes that he actually knows who was the killer. Now, the characters he believes that he can actually trust is Zatanna, Captain Atom, Hawkman, Green Arrow, Black Canary, because they were all together on the Justice League. Now, here's the thing. He believes it is Dr. Light. Now, before we are able to actually talk about who or why Dr. Light was the one that killed off Sue Dibney, we see Hawkman realize that there's someone in the room watching them, and that would be Wally West. Wally West realized that all the other heroes left to go after different enemies who had possibly did this to Sue. But this small group of heroes did not leave. And for Wally, he wanted to know why. Now, he's also with Kyle Rayner as well. And really, this is a callback to the idea that Wally and Kyle are the latest Flash and Green Lantern at this time in DC Comics. Of course, replacing both Barry Allen and also Hal Jordan. Now, with that being said, you have Wally wanting to know, why were these other characters meeting up here in the back of the church? And why are they going after Dr. Light? Now, most of the characters in the room do not want to tell Wally nor Kyle what happened in the past and why they believe it was Dr. Light. But you didn't have them say, you know what? It's time for them to know. But we're going to tell them as we make our way over to a certain location. And so this is where you have the actual event begin to push some boundaries, because we learned that there was a moment in time where the entire league was not at the watchtower. But you know who was? Sue, the wife of the elongated man. She was there by herself, and Dr. Light was able to find a way onto the actual watchtower. Now, once he was able to get there, he recognized her because the world knew the true identity of the elongated man and also his wife. And so for Dr. Light, she was unfortunately an easy target. And so you had Dr. Light do some horrible things to her. Now, she was able to call out for help by hitting a button, but the problem was the entire league, they were on Earth. They were away from the watchtower. And so by the time you had Barry Allen being able to make it there to actually help her out, it already happened. And then the rest of the league arrived. By the way, this is a flashback. So it took place back in time where we had Barry Allen as the Flash and Hal Jordan as the Green Lantern. Either way, like I said, by the time they got there, it was already too late. Now, you did have our heroes be down on him, and they were able to take her over to the hospital. But for the elongated man, he truly believes it was Dr. Light who killed off his wife because of what happened in the past. Now, after you had the elongated man take his wife over to the hospital, you had the rest of the league stay behind. Now, this is the point where you kind of have the actual party, Wally West, and the other heroes kind of go back and forth on was this the right move or the wrong move? And let me explain. Because after you had the elongated man take his wife to the hospital, you had the rest of the league stay behind with Dr. Light. Now, you had that group decide that the best option to make sure that Dr. Light would never do something like this again to any other women across the world, they came together and said, hey, Zatanna should use her magic on his mind to alter his mind, to make him a tad bit different, so that he will no longer have that personality that wants to go after other women and actually assault them. Now, again, for some of the heroes, it's kind of wrong because they were invading his mind, but at the same time, they're trying to protect other women, especially other women who may be close to other heroes. And so for Wally West, he cannot believe that like Barry Allen would actually agree to that, but Barry did, and so did Hal. Now, while you have our heroes telling that story over to Wally West and also Kyle Rayner, we kind of have to jump over to the Injustice Gang satellite. They had their own base out in space. Now, by this point in DC Comics, it's not currently being used by the Injustice Gang. It's being used by a bunch of random villains as a hangout spot, or possibly an area where if you are an assassin looking for your next job, you can go there and possibly find your next job there. Now, with that being said, while you have our villains hanging out, we do shift our focus over to Merlin. And really, Merlin is not really that important for this section. Just know that he's trying to tell us what has been going on the actual satellite after the actual Injustice Gang had left it behind. But while he's trying to explain things to us, Dr. Light appears up there because he was sent there by the Calculator. Now, we had talked about the Calculator in our last video. Around his time in DC Comics, he was trying to be like Oracle, being able to give out information to villains when they need it. Of course, you have to pay him first before you were able to get that info, but he was trying to be the Oracle for the bad guys out there in DC Comics. But he told Dr. Light, you better go up to the satellite and find an assassin who can actually protect you. Telling you right now, you better use a lot of money to hire the best one, because apparently the Calculator knew that sooner or later the Justice League would be coming after Dr. Light to arrest him. Now, let's not forget that his mind was altered, so he has no idea why they would be trying to come after him for. Now, when we jump back over to our heroes, they're still at the house of Dr. Light. They're about to actually break into his house to hopefully find him. Now, when it came to the scene we saw a moment ago where it was Dr. Light asking for help, that took place just moments before this scene right here. Now, we do learn that the elongated man, he had no idea that the rest of the league did that after he took his wife over to the hospital. But at the same time, it's kind of like, are you really upset by it? Because in reality, they made sure that man would never have the ability to do that again to another woman. Either way, you do have our heroes begin to head over to the home of Dr. Light, Now, once you have our heroes being able to actually reach the door of Dr. Light, there's a huge blast, sending everyone away. And the reason why? Because we do learn that Dr. Light was able to hire somebody, and that somebody is, well, Deathstroke. And of course, this makes a lot of sense. If you want to make sure that you are well protected from the league, you hire the best man for the job. And the best man for the job is Deathstroke. Now we jump over to Bruce Wayne because you have Bruce, well, being Bruce Wayne, where you have Bruce looking over the body of Sue Dibney. Now, here's the thing. You have our heroes also believe that it was Dr. Light because she was badly burned. So besides the past assault he did to her, is also the idea that the heroes believed that she was burned by Dr. Light, heavily burned. But you have Batman say, that's not the case. Like, she died before she was properly burned, which means Dr. Light could have not been the killer, which means right now the League is going after the wrong man. Now, Oracle was able to tell Batman that she found out what they're up to, but you also have Oracle realize that Batman is saying the League is going after the wrong guy, which means they're only making things worse. Now, as we dive into the third chapter of Identity Crisis, most of the first few pages of this book is really our heroes fighting against Deathstroke. Now, can I say this is a great moment in the book because it really shows how great Deathstroke is. Like, you would think, okay, with this lineup, there's no way that he should be able to win. But that's the catch, though. You see, Deathstroke is the best assassin in the world, the best mercenary in the world. This man is always prepared. He knows what to do to each and every single one of them. And so you have Deathstroke being able to take them all out. And really, by the end of this section, it kind of seems like, okay, Deathstroke is going to be able to take them all out and go on with his day. And our heroes, unfortunately, are just going to have to take the butt kicking. Except that is the moment where you didn't have Green Arrow being able to come up from behind Deathstroke and actually take one of his arrows and put it in the eye socket of Slade Wilson. Now, if you know your history of Deathstroke, you know it's a huge no-no. And the reason why, because that was where his wife shot him. Now, with that being said, you didn't have the entire group trying their best to hold this man down, to make sure that he can finally be defeated but not get away. Except while they were doing that, Dr. Light begins to remember everything that happened back with Sue. Because remember, Zatanna said she's going to use her magic to play with his mind, to kind of make him forget everything he did. And so he begins to remember. And once he realizes what the heroes have done to him, he gets very upset and wants to explode. Except luckily for our heroes, Superman had arrived just in time. Now, once you have Superman being able to calm everybody down, this is where we kind of learn that Dr. Light was not the only bad guy to have his mind altered. We're beginning to learn that there were other characters in the past who also had their minds altered as well by the Justice League, by Zatanna. Now, something I should also mention is that not every single hero knows what happened to Dr. Light. It was only this group of characters. Now, for Wally, he wants to know, why did they do this for? Like, why did they begin to alter the minds of certain bad guys around the world? What exactly went down? You see, we learned that back in the past, the early days of the Justice League, there was a moment in time you had this group called the Secret Society of Supervillains being able to switch bodies with our heroes. And they began to learn the true identities of all these different heroes. Now, once you have our heroes being able to regain their bodies, they were still scared because now their bad guys knew their secret identities. They can now go after the different people that our heroes care so much for. And so because of that moment, you then had this group of characters decided that it would be best to alter the minds of all those different people, because these bad guys, they don't care about you at all. They'll go after your loved ones, kill them, and then after doing that, go grab by to eat like they did nothing wrong. And so for Oliver Queen, he's trying to tell Wally West, like, hey, you have to understand why we did this for. But now we have to jump over to Captain Boomerang. Now, when we do, we see that this is a man who's at his lowest point in his life. Now, usually for Captain Boomerang, he's always fighting the Flash, always part of the Suicide Squad, always part of some kind of team. But by this point in DC Comics, the man has reached his lowest point in life. Now, here's the thing. You see, he's trying to find a job, trying to find somebody who would actually hire him. Now, I'm not talking about like, an actual job. I'm talking more like mercenary work. Either way, he calls up the calculator hoping that he will know somebody who could possibly hire Captain Boomerang. But unfortunately, you have the calculator tell Captain, like, nobody wants to hire you. Now, we are told that no one wants to hire him for what he has done. And we're not really told what he did. Now, we do see him outside the house of his son that was adopted by some people after him and Golden Glider, a different character, had him. And so for Calculator, he says, if you want me to believe that you were able to get back on your feet and complete jobs, do this one thing for me. Go say hi to your son that you gave up for adoption. But for Captain Boomerang, he can't do it. He's kind of like, no, I can't. I'm too scared. And he shuts down. And so this kid named Owen Mercer will not know at this point in time that he was just talking to his biological father. But yeah, for Captain Boomerang, he has reached his lowest point. Now we jump over to Tim Drake, and you have Tim Drake coming back home after a long day being Robin, but also being on the Teen Titans. Now, he always tried his best to use makeup to hide all his different scars and bruises from his hero life from his father. Now, his father knows that he is Robin, and really for Jack Drake, he wants his son to quit being Robin, but he understands why Tim does it for. Now, the ending of the third issue is really important. The reason why, because we jump over to the home of Ray Palmer, better known as the Atom. Now, we actually see we see his wife, Jean Loring, being attacked. And so now, another loved one, somebody close to a hero, is being killed off. Now, luckily for her, she was able to call up her ex-husband, because around this time in DC Comics, these two characters were actually divorced. But either way, at least she is able to call out for her ex-husband. But the question is now, will he get there in time to save her life? And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.